That's how the Bible is good.
To come and discuss this hospital and what we all consider very important situation up there. I want to remind everybody, please be respectful of each other. And ask the question to the person. We're here to deliver some solutions. We're not here to criticize, debase people. Before we get started, what I'd like to do is to kind of go around the corner and table. I'll start with Terry, kind of introduce us as another council commission. Knows everyone. When I get over to the commission, I'd like for you to state your name, and just a brief what you do at the hospital, and just a brief what you've done. That's I took it to the discussion of the hospital. We kind of let everybody know where we are and be here. Terry, you want to take on?
I'm Terry McClung, semi-retired realtor here in town, city councilman. What else do you want?
You're well known there.
Okay.
Yep. Is your microphone on?
Rochelle Moyer, lived here since 2011. University professor, business owner in town, and council person.
Harry Meyer, councilman in Ward 3, Position 2.
Susan Gruning, I'm Ward 1, so the hospital's in my ward, and have been coming to Eureka since 2001 and moved here full-time in 2015. So I feel like I've been a resident for quite a while here, seeing the ebb and flow of the city.
Steve Holofield, City Council, Ward 2. I've been living here for 12 years.
David Anzio, Ward 2 and Small Spring.
Sharon DeRamus, Hospital Commission, retired nurse.
Ryan Byler, been here since 1983 in Eureka Springs. Just a general contractor and insurance background, and I do help facilitate just what happens at the facilities over there as far as maintenance and stuff like that at the hospital. And I'm vice chair.
Sandy Martin, I've been here since 2007. I'm chairman of the Hospital Commission. I also am the liaison. We each have liaison roles with policies and procedures and now finance.
I'm David Carlisle, Commissioner, retired physician, and board member. Thank you.
Kate Dreyer, Commission Secretary. I'm working on my 8th year in Eureka. I'm also a retired nurse.
I'm Vivian Smith. I'm the newest commissioner. I was sworn in February 14th, and I've been in healthcare a long, long time.
Sandy, I'd like to give us just a brief background, probably from the beginning of what we're going to do to the president.
Brief, huh? Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's why they weren't printed for everybody. In your packets,
Yeah, there's been some feedback. If anybody's got their phone close to their microphone, it will do some feedback.
okay. In your packets was a timeline that kind of spelled pretty much of what you're asking out. I've got more copies if you'd like them, but the timeline clearly spells out when we started the process of becoming REH. We were encouraged by the state to do it because of the situation with rural hospitals closing. and they knew how important rural hospitals were, so they came up with the REH designation a year prior. There are 4 currently in the state of Arkansas. We had our final review in December, and we're accredited to go with the REH model starting in January. There were several steps that had to be taken, not only with staffing, but systems, policies. We consider our baseline really actually April, by the time we got everything kind of situated with it. In January and February, we were working with an REH consultant, the Rural Healthcare Redesign Center. That's been helpful. They also consult with the state and federal on REH policies since it's new and they're still working on some policies. So we started with that. We made some staff changes in April. There were positions that could be eliminated. We were told, and in your packet you have a report from the Arkansas Department of Finance that stated basically at that time, and that was like a preliminary review for REH, said that we were qualified to it, should pursue an REH, that we were currently 6% overstaffed. Under the REH, we would be 25% overstaffed. So there were positions that were eliminated, there were positions that weren't filled, and there were some that were consolidated. In May, we had our first REH state survey. It was minimal, it was 7 pages. We got clearance and approval of our acceptance plan on that in July. Then in August, we started getting feedback and rumbles of some disgruntled employees and some situations going on. The commission, specifically the chair at that time, started looking into it. We were continuing with the REH model. In November, let me go back. In September 4th, the previous CEO submitted her resignation letter to the chair, but rescinded it, never acted on it. On the 10th of September, she sent a memo to the commissioners saying that we should not have any contact with staff without going through her, which we found interesting. On September 12th, she sent a memo to staff stating, rather lengthy memo stating the hostile environment and that changes were going to be made that obviously were not immediately. In November, we had the surprise visit from the state. They were in for a week. We had a massive audit, 53 pages plus a secondary 7-page that was clarifying. It's kind of what they do. They do a mass one and then they'll send out others. We spent a lot of time getting that corrected, and as you know, we got that acceptance that we were clear and back in CMS compliance. And we had one 7-pager left to do. We just received clearance that that plan of correction was accepted as well. So that's kind of where we are up to date. The commission did do a lot of investigation into the environment. We've made some corrections. Right now, we think our environment is really good. Seems like most people are happy. We had our second employee appreciation luncheon today. Does that kind of cover it? Okay.
Is the lab up to date? Is the lab working? Do you have a blood supply?
The lab is open. We are still on divert. We can't do blood product yet until we get the certification signed off. We have pathologist, lab manager, CLIA director, CLIA manager. We have 2 onboarding technicians. They will go through their credentials, get signed, so as soon as those are signed, we will be fully staffed and we will be off divert.
I see that from letters from the contractor that was helping with lab, that she was not cooperated with, and her contract was, well, she says it's a breach of contract because they were moving to improve the lab and staff did not move to help. Is there movement on that now? I mean,
That's now in our attorney hands. There are some things misstated. There was a data breach issue with that contractor. She was alerted by Pinnacle twice.
are you saying that she's not telling the truth?
I'm saying there's a data breach and our attorney is handling it.
Okay.
Do we have a copy of that letter from the former contractor?
I sent it to everyone.
Great, thank you.
What,
And it's basically a copy of her contract, and then there's a copy of what she sent to the hospital, turned in. This isn't something that I've solicited. It's something that y'all should have, we should be aware of.
Well, I just got that late this afternoon, so I did print it out. But a couple of things in that, Mr. Meyer, if I can address. She's a contractor, and she terminated her contract. And she stated a couple of places that Pinnacle helped her set up a VPN, and they did not give her the initial authorization. She had unauthorized access given to her by the prior IT person. The issue was that she set up a VPN, but also a parallel network, which is a MAC override of all system that has full access. That's unauthorized. That's a data breach. She was called by Pinnacle and explained, and then she reset it, and it was wiped again. And you have a copy of our letter on the next day, March 11th, I believe it is, from Jody to the state notifying them that we were going on divert until staff was put in place, and that there was a potential data breach that we were concerned with.
How many times has the hospital been on divert since REH has started? In the last few
Twice.
years? How long? A period?
What was it, Kate, in December?
Well, several weeks total, but we can, I'll be happy to get you that
Well,
exact.
you can understand
that
our
exact
concern because that means that I can't go to the hospital if
No,
I have a heart attack. or-
Incorrect.
No, that's not.
You don't need blood product for heart attacks.
That's not true.
Not
Fact.
part of the story.
In fact, we
Okay.
dealt with a heart
I'm
attack
not-
from a city employee.
Well, then, you mean some ambulances can come to the hospital right now?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Have they been?
They can recognize a seriously bleeding patient.
I have-
They will go elsewhere.
Which we took care of today, as a matter of fact.
Today?
Today. We had quite the emergency today. And the person, it was a life-saving measures that were taken at the hospital today before he was flighted out. So it was very good that that person was here and didn't have to wait and go 15 or 45 minutes away to a facility. So we saved a life today. I wasn't there, but the staff saved a life today.
And by the way, our chief nurse, our CNO, is Lana Mills, is sitting over there. If there are technical questions that you want on that, she'll be glad to answer.
Why are we using so much contract staff?
Well, the first reason is when we were flipped into the situation that we were with staffing, walking out, we had no choice other than to go to contracting. They are immediately credentialed and certified, so they come ready to work with it. Our goal is to reduce the contract employees and hire more employees. With nurses, we have several, in fact, we've got 2 right now that are on contract. They're initially a 13-week contract. They can renew for 1 year, and then they have to step out. They want to come to work and be employees at the hospital, but there's a waiting period that they have to do. But there are 2 that we want to hire back. Our intent is not to staff it with a whole bunch of contract employees. I sent you a document. It's from a financial standpoint, it's a little bit of a wash between a contract employee and an employee. By the time you add in the benefits and everything else, there are a lot of benefits to a contractor, but we still would like to have employees.
And knowing that you want to get back to hiring locals, is there something in place to give the employees that were either felt they were fired unfairly or quit because they were afraid of retaliation and whatever? I mean, surely you guys have heard what we've heard.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so is there a plan in place to get those people back to work?
I'll say no, not at this time.
If we have an opening, they're certainly, able to apply.
Will they be able to apply for that position?
Absolutely.
Sure.
And get a fair and unbiased interview
Sure.
to come back to the hospital?
There's no retaliation.
Okay.
I can assure you
I
there's
see
no.
that from the board, absolutely. What I'm afraid of is, and I know we can't get into personnel matters, and I won't, but the retaliation, hostility with the current administration.
Kate,
I don't-
you were going to say something, Kate?
Well, from an HR perspective, which, obviously I'm not the HR director, but as long as someone gave their notice and fulfilled that term of notice and left, was what they call it, they're eligible for rehire, which is, the same standard in any hospital or clinic I've ever worked in. As long as you were eligible for rehire because you served your notice term, then if you're eligible for rehire. And so you can, if there are positions available, then you can reapply when something else comes up. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that our neighbors that want to go back to work at the hospital are faced with, unless they were terminated for something that was very severe, that they are welcomed and treated respectfully, interviewed respectfully, and given a second chance.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I know you have a CEO position posted. So does that mean the commission is not looking at some type of management organization? They're going to go back to the old model and stick with that?
We were not looking for a management, and we've been in the staff, the commission hasn't, but the staff has had conversations with North Ark Medical Center, but for specific interim administration services in the lab, and also they have a deep pool of talent that we can draw from that they would like to help. But no, as you know, Dr. House pulled his proposal, and then the mayor sent me, and we received an email that if we're interested in it, he would be interested in going back at the table. We are actively looking for a CEO. We've got a couple of good candidates that we're vetting. If Dr. House wants to give us a specific proposal, because I'm sure you've seen the same documents we all have, there are no specifics in it. We would be more than happy to workshop it with them at our April 7th workshop, but we need specifics to go by to consider it. And then we can fairly weigh that against a CEO or a management company.
So you're not making decisions really about just a CEO and not a management company? Or are you still open to whatever? Have you made any decisions about what's going to happen with the management of the hospital besides?
Well, we have been going down the path of a CEO.
Yeah. Okay.
So our last council meeting, we had made suggestions for the commission to sort of reinvent itself in a, what's the word I'm looking for? As just an oversight committee, that y'all should not be managing and running the hospital.
We would love that.
Part of Steve's question is, do you think it would be better if we used another management agency to run that hospital?
Our history's not been that well with management companies.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Such as a hospital, another medical facility you're talking about, David? Is that correct?
Just any management company in general. It seems to me that giving...
Could be Dr. House.
Yeah. It seems to me that we have a situation in place that for this side of the table is not working. I don't know what that side of the table thinks about the way things are being run now.
They're being run very well.
But could they be run by a management company? This is their job, this is their profession, this is what they do day in and day out. Whether it's,
Terry and I, we've been here long enough. Management companies have seemed to be a problem at the hospital, don't you? We've had our issues with them in the past. And I'm not referring to Dr. House. I'm talking about outside management companies. And Terry, I think we're kind of in that thought process.
Other management companies, but I'm thinking more along the lines of Washington Regional, Mercy, the Harrison Hospital.
Gotcha. You're talking about bringing in an actual hospital and let them take control of the hospital.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Is that being considered?
Is that being considered? Is that
Well, I think several years ago, and I wasn't on it, so I don't know, Kate, if you were or not, but there was a discussion, I think, with Mercy, but then they're starting to reduce their services, and there was no interest because they were interested at one time.
But that's several years ago.
And I think even Washington Regional at one time was one that was interested.
But that's
It's
in the
worth checking
past.
out.
Have they been contacted and are they being considered as,
In a
to
general
reach out to them and see?
In a general sense, there's been a pattern of expansion of hospitals, and they just spread and spread and
Yes.
spread. And that pancake dough spreading has retrenched in the last several years. There's not eagerness that a few years ago we could have called those folks and they would have taken us over in a minute. They're not quite so eager at this time. And specifically, we haven't called them up this week.
And I understand that, David, and I believe what you're saying is true, but shouldn't that be an avenue that should be at least traveled to see if that is their policy correctly now? If maybe they do have an interest, maybe it's not in their general plan of doing things like that, but it may be something that is appealing to them. Maybe not, but don't you think it's worth at least, the question?
We'd have to also check because of the new REH affiliation, how that would work out. Because we've gone to become a critical care hospital. That would have to be someone to have to look at as to whether they'd be interested in stepping into that, but it's worth looking into.
we can call
It never
them.
hurts to ask.
Sure.
There's no.
We can call
But,
them.
you guys have gotten some stuff that, in our last meeting, there's some great news about what's happened at the hospital and how it's progressing in a very positive way. And you all should have gotten that in your packet of how that went, and Lana shared that with at the last public meeting. And just incredible what they've accomplished, this new group that are running things.
Susan, can I respond to follow up on David's question on that? In our bylaws that I sent you a copy of, that is exactly the way we're supposed to operate, as an oversight commission. And the CEO has the responsibilities of doing that. That's the way we were operating. That's the way we wanted to operate with the authority under the previous CEO until jobs were not being done. We only stepped in an active role when this all blew up. We don't want to micromanage the hospital. We want to be the advisory commission as stated with it. That's why we need either a strong CEO or a strong management company. And in my way of thinking, it's one and the same, actually. If you have a good, strong CEO, they are the management. And you don't need a secondary management company to come in and layer. Or you get a management company, you work out the financial arrangements, and they appoint a CEO.
I will definitely give you that, but I don't believe, I'm speaking only for myself, that there is current confidence in the current administration by the entire city, by patients, by some of the people sitting at this table. So how are you going to combat that? What are you going to be able to do? Oh, sorry. Did you hear any of that? Okay. So I guess my question is, with everything that's happened and the current administration that's in place, there has been loud and a whole lot of output regarding these people and how bad it is to work there. So how are you going to tackle that? How do you come back from that? How do people sitting here say, yes, send my mother to Eureka Springs Hospital and not to Berryville or some other major hospital? Because part of from what I understand, when we went through the REH process, positions were consolidated
And eliminated.
So how are we understaffed after that happened?
How are we understaffed?
Yeah, you went to a much smaller model.
I think that was a year ago, right, that those figures were?
I can't hear you. Sorry.
That was about a year ago. Those were compiled by the REH, the group that was,
state that
that
we
was
were
helping us,
overstaffed, I said.
according to
Our
the
intended
Notes are on
guidelines.
my phone, so hang on just a minute.
Okay. We were
I was just curious if positions were eliminated or consolidated
both.
with the REH model. How are we now staffed the way that we are?
We are staffed pretty good. We're onboarding 2 more employees.
Are those lab employees? Because my understanding is that we have 1 lab person that comes in 1 to 2 days per week. That's what I understand is the current situation in the lab.
Yes or no?
Okay, let's just do a little workshop.
Okay.
So our lab folks that are going to be on board, we have our pathologist, we have our
Clear.
manager, correct? Okay, so those are the 2 key positions that have to be in place so that we can train and get the regular lab staff.
You got to
You're
speak
into your
into the microphone, please.
Well, I'll do both. So when will the other lab people be going through their training? Yes. Yes.
Can she come up to a mic?
We can't hear her.
Come here,
Not
come here and
being
use
recorded.
this.
And she should stay to
This is Lana Mills, she's Director of Nursing.
She's our clinical director,
and
Director of
Clinical
Nursing.
Services.
I'm sorry.
Don't be.
We have our pathologist.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Dave.
There you go.
I'm trying not to intrude, I'm sorry.
You're not
No,
an intrusion, you're part of us.
So we have our new lab manager, and then we have the person that you're speaking about, 1 to 2 days a week, probably coming in. That is a PRN person. She's been on staff for a while. She's filling in. We had one person that came in that just onboarded with her, and they trained last week. And we have a couple of new people that are coming in and training within the next couple of weeks as well.
So the staffing, we've got that, and the lab will be fully functioning at that point. We're looking for a marketing director that will help with the community outreach program a lot.
And I understand that we were doing really, really good with our radiology department, correct? And now, from what I understand, it's like 90% decrease in radiology appointments. So, loss of revenue. Is there any way what's the plan to recoup that?
To get it back.
Hiring new, I mean, the radiology director went to adjacent facility got a nice size raise as far as I understand. I hope that's not discussing personnel, but it was voluntary for her own benefit, and I'm not privy to who has applied for our radiology department. So I cannot answer your question, but we can certainly get that answer for you, David.
We have a radiology director in place right now, and then I believe she has been interviewing other people to fill one of the spots. She's active.
And have our medical providers surrounding us, are they now referring back to the hospital, or are they still not?
As a matter of fact, we had, yesterday, we had 2 referrals from Dr. House.
And what was it? What should it be? Is it 5 or 6 a week?
Should be higher than we are.
What were those
we're-
referrals? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
What were those referrals for?
I don't know specifically, but they were,
I'm not sure what the exact, I believe they were outpatient referrals.
Radiology or something? CAT scan?
I can ask and get that to you.
Okay, well, I'm
but David,
curious.
to the heart of your question, we've got a lot of work to do. There's no question about it. And we would just encourage the council to kind of reflect back on what the hospital, the staff, has gone through in the last year. Our goal when we went into REH, because it's a good model for Eureka, excuse me, and when we were getting on track toward the end of the year, we actually were in the black. It gives us an opportunity to grow outpatient services, which we wanted to do. We were on that path, identifying several that we could do, and then we got diverted. We need to get back on that path. We've been working to stabilize the hospital, get it calm the environment, which we think we have. We think the workplace environment is good. They're painting the place. They're doing outside cleanup. I mean, there's pride in the hospital from the employees. There are still that are working on eggshells, walking on eggshells because of the negative press. Mm-hmm. And they're afraid. They're afraid to go to the grocery store because they'll be accosted by somebody. That's out of our control. We can control our environment, and that's what we're trying to do. And it appears to be improved quite a bit. But we've got community damage to repair. We've got reputation to repair. The staff has been directed to focus on their jobs and to make sure that they focus on quality health care, and I think they're doing that. When we get the marketing director in, we will do community outreach. We will start pursuing outpatient services now that we can present new things. We have the agreement with UAMS on the telehealth. One of the community outreach things we want to do is a large open house where we can announce with UAMS the telehealth opportunities. Also, they can meet the medical staff and Chief Medical Director, Dr. Roberts, Lana, Velvet Schultz, our new employees, take a tour of the hospital because it's quite different and cleaner now. And then start from there. We're anxious to get to that point.
Is that right, Avery? Okay. So, and I'm going to speak to this side of the table and say, we really don't know what happened that caused this event, this major event in Eureka Springs. But we do know one side of the story, and that side of the story is the personal side of the story. And it's been very, I don't want to say frustrating, but it's been gut-wrenching to hear some of the stories about what has been lost in the way of a paycheck, insurance, so forth and so on. So at least for myself, it's been a lot. I'm going to say probably since November, over 200 phone calls and emails, and they still keep coming. So I would like to know from each one of you individually, if you were in our shoes, what would you do?
Sharon, you want to start?
What would I do? I think that there's just time.
Speak in the microphone.
Oh, well, everybody hears me, Butch. Jeez.
I know.
I don't know. I think it's just going to, like Sandy said, it's going to take a tincture of time. It's going to be, I'm pretty pumped about some of the new staff that's come on board in the emergency room, the trauma nurse that was hired. As a nurse to a nurse, I was really impressed. And it is essentially an emergency room. That's what it is. I don't know. I think, I think we just need to get the word out that we're hiring, looking at some of the resumes for the CEOs, I'm very impressed. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. We're just going to have to gain their confidence, I mean, we've all heard the bad press too, and that concerns me as a nurse, but it's got to be principles before personalities. That's all I got to say.
Well, my question is, we've had people that worked at that hospital for many years.
They're still on my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry.
From my perspective, my son's a paramedic, has been with the fire department for 10 years. And of course, we talk a lot. And the negative press, and I know there's concerned employees that are no longer with us. I understand that. I also believe that a lot of the stories that have been shared need to be heard from both sides. I believe there's a lot of things there that our press has not helped at all. We gave them a report 10 days ago that Atlanta put together that showed nothing but awesome accomplishment from our staff and what we've been doing and how we've been treating our patients. And that was not in any of the articles for either one of those reporters that sat here that day and heard that. My concern is that it's time to turn it around and start looking at the positive things. And I encourage all of you to go up and take a tour of the hospital, see what's going on up there, and get a feel for it. But from my perspective, we've got a great place. We don't need to lose this hospital. We need to stay strong and be strong. And my son shares with me how the paramedics are feeling. I know where they're coming from. I hear their temperature. But I'm telling you, until that press turns it around, these people are going to continue to want to go to Berryville because they reading that newspaper going, oh, there's a lot of problems over there. And that's a concern of mine. It's time to put some positive stuff out there from not only us as a commission, you guys as the council, start to look hard at what is the hospital doing right now. And the things of the past, we'll sort those out. But it's time to save the hospital and make it function for the community again like it has. And I just encourage all of us as a group to start to look at both sides of the deal and try to see what the positives are coming out of that hospital right now. Because my son's a paramedic, and I sure don't want the hospital closing and affecting what he's doing. And those guys are getting tired of driving to Berryville. And not only that, the cost, the additional things that are going on there, it's costing that fire department a lot more effort to have to transport to Berryville. So anyway, that's where I'm at.
If I were on your side of the table, I would read every one of those documents.
I would like to.
I know, it's not, well, it was fun putting them together, too. Because I think you'll find a different side of the story in there, and I think you'll find how it progressed and who progressed it. And I think the other side of the story is in that we take, and I want to be clear about this, we all take those complaints seriously. Some of them are extremely valid, others are not. But we still stand by our staff.
I think if I were on your side of the table, I would try to maintain my awareness of the environment that we live in, that information is not what it used to be, that the information available to the consumer of Facebook and the press in our town is faced with the same thing that we're faced in the world at large, a lot of information, difficult to parse. What we do know is that negative information is mother's milk. It just makes us happy to hear that. and we feast on it. And so do our citizens. It's hard not to, and once you get a drumbeat going, all I have to do is repeat it and repeat it. Now it's by mouth. So I'll just try to remember that there is a source of information here that's kind of dry and really cruddy and hard to acquire and assimilate and balance off against the hideous stories that are being told of dismembered bodies in the violent hospital. There's a truth probably somewhere in the middle, but the fact is it's human beings. I read some of the reports and it was high school in there at some time, an administration that wasn't seeing it, and we were a little distant and we couldn't pick it up, and it escalated, and the people that were in charge were over their head. They couldn't control the fact that communication hadn't been kept clean, and that personalities had been allowed to flower, and it became untenable, and then it exploded. And now it's viral, and all those sad stories probably have an element of, I mean, if I'm getting fired, by golly, I am being trampled on, of course. But, and I'm sure there was some unfairness. There's no way it couldn't be just statistically. But we've got to remember that there is a body of evidence that can be looked at and balanced off, and that it isn't as cut and dried as I read in the gossip columns, pardon me. So I think that information would help you out. Now, what do we do about that? Once again, we're facing the firestorm of Facebook and its allies and a constant drumbeat where the positive can't hold a candle to a forest fire. So we have a very difficult task. I remember being at a job one time. It was me and another guy against a whole big group. And I was saying, Bob, we just can't make it here. He said, Dave, just do good work. The patients will do fine. The surgeons will come back to you. And that's all I know that can be done. Whether it'll survive in this environment, I don't know. But at the present time, the hospital over there, and I've taken 2 people in, both got, the first time, the new doc didn't know me, so there was no, like, I'm getting a biased story. The treatment was excellent. I wish it had gone a little faster because I was sitting there with my friend while he was being cleared, found out not to have a stroke. But things were done that you would expect to be done. And we have stories that have been brought to us where things were done as they should have been done. And there's a statistical component to those stories, and they're buried out in there, where currently care is better.
Yes.
Survival is enhanced. It's not a very good statistical sampling, but it's definitely clear that things are better now than they were, at least in the cases that we can see. And it's a small place. We can't see a whole lot. Gaining the trust of our people in our town, our friends, maybe we need to tell some good stories. I don't know, because we're hearing the bad ones just go on and on. And I'm glad to be on this job. For a long time, we oversee the hospital. We go to those meetings every month. They tell us, da-da-da-da-da-da. They say it's tough, it's weird, we got problems, this and that. And, but it was the assumption that the team, the administration, was doing their job. And they did until some minor discrepancies just oscillated and became a driving force and disrupted the hospital. And the disruption is over. The rebuilding is what's happening at this time. That's what we're doing. That's what we're seeing. And the attitude amongst the employees over there, the people that work over there, they're glad to be there. I'm sure there's somebody that's not, but most of them are. And that's kind of where it is, I think.
What would I like the folks looking at me to do? Let's keep having some workshops. Let's have them as often as you're willing to show up. Once a week might be too much for everybody's schedule, but twice a month, let's do it. Let's just keep rolling our sleeves up. we want your ideas. Hopefully you want our ideas. Our CEO search has revealed many people around the country were interested in this position. And we had 3 out of about 12 or 14. We had 3 very solid ones that the commission all agreed on. But the third candidate withdrew his name because he didn't want his information FOIA'd, okay, made public to, the universe. The other 2 that we've had the first round of interviews with, both very strong, with lots of history of turnarounds, okay, going into facilities that were going into bankruptcy or hostile takeover, or, around the corner. And so a lot of turnarounds on both. One of the stories that we heard yesterday from yesterday's interview was from a Northwest Arkansas. This person was in a directorship in a hospital in Northwest Arkansas, and there was a huge section of the community that didn't feel safe going to this particular facility. They felt marginalized. And it took about a year, but this particular candidate rolled I'll say their sleeves, so I won't be saying the sex of the person, rolled their sleeves up and got out into the community and got with this particular section of the community and turned things around with their confidence in the facility, so much so that now some of these folks, because there was language barrier, some of these folks were eventually hired within the facility. So even though there was a lot of ground to make up, this person was dedicated and determined and got a huge turnaround with a part of the community that felt like they weren't cared for and they were scared. And so I was quite impressed with the 2 final candidates. And we have a couple of the members on the commission who still need to make phone calls to get a little more information, and then we will have another round of Zoom meetings, and then, please correct me if I'm wrong, then the commission will need to meet for a special session, and we'll go into executive and put all the ducks out there, all the facts and figures, and make our decision that way. But the first thing I was impressed with was how many people wanted to live and work in Eureka Springs. What I have asked the ones that made it as far as the Zoom meetings, I asked them to please go back to November 1st on YouTube and look at all of the city council meetings and look at all of the hospital commission meetings, and then tonight to look at our session today, so that people who come with eyes wide open and they realize that we have outreach and healing that needs to occur. But I have to agree with the folks who have already spoken that much healing has occurred. She's not with us at the table any longer, but Lana Mills has done an incredible job. She's a former flight nurse and trauma nurse and spent time out, as she said, in the ditches as an EMT, and has her master's and has done medical training and teaching, and she is fluent in all of the software and all of the departments. So if there was any teaching that needed to be done, for, not for the certification like in the lab or different places, but if follow-up training needed to be done, Lana can do almost everything over there. Our new group of emergency room physicians, smart, young, eager, talented physicians. I can't really talk about the prior group of folks who were there and the events that led up to their departure. I don't believe I can talk about that. I'm getting a no. But I can promise you that the individuals, whether it was a group or if it was an individual that was asked to no longer be with us, none of these decisions were willy-nilly. I can promise you that. Anyway, so I'll wrap up my remarks for now, but I hope that we can continue to have workshops and continue to work with one another. And I'm excited about the CEO candidates that we have. Thank you.
Wow. So I don't know what I would do in your position, to tell you the truth. You have a lot of angry and hurt people that come to you all the time. And I think that I was disheartened by what I heard at the meetings because there has to be mutual respect. We have to keep the conversation going. There has to be no name calling. We have to believe in each other. You have to believe in this commission. We all want the same thing. I want this hospital to remain open. I visited the hospital. I was so impressed. The first time I walked in there, I went and had a procedure done there, and I was so impressed with the staff, with the physical look of the facility. And I just want to encourage us. I'll talk to any of you. I don't know anything right now, and I'm learning a lot, but any time you want to talk to me, I'm available to talk. I don't know what to do for the people that have been hurt. I don't know what they want. I know that we keep on hearing the negative over and over and over again, and we need to focus on the positive. There's so many positive things happening, so many. And I think that they get lost in the negative back and forth, so.
Sure. Susan.
So I'm going to skip around a little bit. We want that too. Trust us. We want that. That's why we're here. And we do have a lot of, I don't want to say negative, but we did have a lot of concerned ex-employees. I look at the employee turnover, and it's high. For a small hospital, it doesn't take much, but it is high. That being said, so I know when you were going to a rural hospital, you had talked about positions being eliminated where it makes sense, right? You do your due diligence, you look at processes, where can we eliminate waste, work harder, or work smarter, not harder. And I know the staff were notified. I think, Sandy, you've mentioned that in the past, that they were, which is good. Right. So are those the employees that are coming to us, the ones that were notified that their positions were being eliminated? Or are these ones that were fired, basically?
Would you please repeat your question?
What part?
I can answer it, I think,
okay.
Kate. We don't know without names and stuff.
Okay.
And my guess, Susan, would be that it's probably a combination.
I agree. And I think
there
some...
were some that left because if they were consolidated or absorbed, because we had a lot of duplication. They either didn't want to do it or the schedule didn't match them, whatever it might be.
And I think you're right. The truth remains somewhere in the middle.
I can give a few. May I? Okay. So we have one person resigned. They had sold their house and they were moving.
What are you talking about? I'm not
Well,
seeing the word
you're wanting
resigned on.
you're wanting some specifics. Well, it's
No, we need specifics from her. Don't go in.
okay. All right.
But we also said somewhere the truth lies in the middle because we are human beings, and you're right. These human beings are coming to us with a lot of concern. And again, we want to save the hospital, that's why we're here. I did get an email, and it was somebody from the hospital or somebody that was working maybe currently, I'm not sure, that wanted us to know on the reasons why maybe some of the people were let go. I'm not sure if this was, but I read somewhere that some of the employees were bringing kids to work, and now they're no longer able to do that. Or I'd have to find the email, but I read it this past week. Did you guys see anything like that? Yeah. So it was like, oh, you know, they brought kids to work, you're not allowed, or they made their own hours where they weren't allowed. And that might be, you know, perhaps so. But were they coached and said under the new CEO, or maybe not so new now, that this is not something that we can continue to work under. Kids do not belong in a hospital. You can't create your own hours because we have to know who's here. Let me finish. When they're here. And so I think, to me, an employee gets themselves fired. As a leader, we break down all barriers. We coach them. I did see somewhere here where somebody was written up because somebody called somebody a name, unprofessional, no doubt about that. So when you're tracking this and you're keeping record, are these employees being coached, or were they just let go? I know 2 people were walked out with police escort. Like, was that necessary? You know, I followed up with the police department, and they said, we're not sure, everything went well, you know, and I said, well, did the people that were let go, did they seem combative or upset? And police chief said no. So, you know, I'm hearing people being walked out. Okay, so that being said, these are the stories that we're hearing. It is negative perception. How do we get rid of negative perception? What is the qualification of the current CEO that makes them qualified for the position they're in? What was their background? What are they qualified in?
Well, let me try to string out a couple of things on that. Remember that the CEO up until November was the previous CEO. So anything that happened with employees prior to that has nothing to do with this administration.
Right.
There were lots of issues. We also know a lot of stuff was not done with it, part of the problem. This CEO, interim CEO that you're talking about, has been in the hospital for 33 years, something like that. She served as interim CEO prior to that. She's HR, basically, and she has a lot of experience with the hospital. She is the institutional memory of the hospital and can tell you that...
She's the what? I'm sorry, she is...
Institutional memory of the hospital.
Okay.
The history. And can tell you that some of these issues that you're hearing on steroids are not new. That, you know, the hospital's had a questionable environment for years. And part of that's because it's a healthcare environment, and it's a hard environment with it. But what is being done with counseling, now it is being done. We have always had SWEEP available, which is the Employee Assistance Program available with training private. You all have it as well. That's encouraged. Our policy is that you're supposed to sit down and talk to them and have a discussion, write them up.
The training, the SWEEP training is encouraged. Are there any things that, as a new employee or putting in a new position, that they're required to do? Like, SWEEP's encouraged, but not mandatory. Like in some environments, employment environments, you're required to take certain trainings. So somebody would go to SWEEP because they're disgruntled, or?
I just mentioned it as one option.
Okay.
If they have conflicts or need other help or anything else. There's an onboarding orientation program. They all have to have their specific area credentialed, trained, certified. The Cerner system that we have, Oracle system that we have, if anybody touches that, there's training that they have to go through on that. There's also a video library training that's there as well for retraining or any refreshment courses. Whatever training they need, we will do it, but
Okay.
yeah.
So, and I do appreciate everything that is happening right now. However, I feel in some portion it was pushed there. When you hire and find a new CEO, what happens to the current CEO? Will they still be retained by the hospital in a different capacity?
Yes, she'll go back to her position as HR.
In HR? So when you have a bad perception of something, usually you try to make a change. And I still believe that change is having these two people that have been the constant with all the complaints removed, honestly.
I would encourage
And you will be doing that with the new CEO. You have somebody that, because they have hospital memory, you know, there's no brain drain with that person. However, I've not heard really any educational qualifications for somebody to be in HR or a CEO.
CFO.
Both, because she would go back to being in HR. I just feel like some of this could have been prevented before it became a hot mess. And with this person having an HR background, even more so as a CEO. So here she has the HR background, and again, I'm not saying every employee that's been disgruntled may not have a good reason to be complaining, because maybe they were justified in their, being let go.
When would you be available to make a visit to the hospital and meet
I'm
the new...
sorry, what?
When would you be available to come to the hospital and meet our new chief of staff and get to know our clinical director a little better and speak to some of the current nurses and the current staff to see how things are going and feeling, face to face and to be on the ground there? When would you be available to do that?
I'm available about any time, but that doesn't fix the perception of moving forward.
Well, I would disagree with that, because if you have a perception of things, if you have a perception of things being a certain way, and you come to the hospital and spend 2 or 3 hours, I believe you'll walk away with a different perception. And so that different perception has, in my humble opinion, has a way of magnifying and growing out, just, like a ripple in a pond. And hopefully everyone on the council would be able to come and spend some time with us. And I truly believe that you'll come away with a different feeling than what you might have right now. And again, please, more workshops. I've been wanting this for a long time, and I'm so thankful that y'all were able to find time in your busy schedules to come be with us and exchange. So anyway, it's an open invitation.
So it's not about just my perception, that's the thing. And it wasn't just a couple of people. It was a lot of people. And it's people that did not come to these meetings because some of them still work there and they're afraid to say anything. So it's not just my perception. I can come, I thankfully have not had to use the hospital very many times. And thankfully it was nothing life-threatening, and I never had an issue for the most part. But it's not just about me, it's my constituents that we as city council are representing.
Of course.
Again, I would encourage...
But let me interject here, and I may be mistaken, but when y'all hire the CEO's in charge of hiring and firing
Yes.
the HR director and whatever happens to the other people.
Yes.
So the commission won't have anything to do with that.
Understand.
And that was true under the previous as well, and the choice was not to fire either one of them.
But you're correct.
My
Mayor.
turn. It's, okay. In fact, one of the contract employees contacted me with the problems that she saw. But she said, look, they're really trying to do their best up there, but there's blood on the floor from the people that have been run out. Now, all the people that came and spoke to the council about the hospital, I don't know personally, but I know a handful of them personally. And I believe everything they've told me. Nurses having to do housekeeping because housekeeping was run off and nobody was hired right away. And people working 40 to 80 hours a week to keep up with their job. That's why they left. Some of them left. And we know, you should all know, we should all know that people that worked at our hospital took a pay cut. They paid more money in Berryville at Mercy. So those people that were working here for years were doing it because they love our hospital, because they wanted to work here. And now they're just, tossed aside. And I'm really upset about that. These are human beings and their lives and their livelihoods. And okay, everything's fine and dandy and starting to get fixed up there, but doggone, don't say that you're not going to bring back the people that have been there for years because they had a disagreement with somebody in the office because of something or because they just couldn't handle the heavy load that was put on their backs. And if y'all don't know that there was heavy loads put on people's backs, then you haven't been going up to the hospital. That's my part. And, there's the list of things that supposed to be stayed open, what part of the old hospital going to be used, but then there's supposed to be a list of what you're going to do with the part of the hospital that's not going to be used anymore. I mean, the main old building, all it is a couple offices. Why not shut those offices down, move them down there since we don't have patients in patient rooms, have the offices down there in the newer part, and shut that off. Save electricity, save energy. That thing is burning up utilities for no reason whatsoever.
Sounds like a workshop all on its own, Harry.
Pardon?
Sounds like a workshop all on its own.
Well, how about the workshop about the people who really love that hospital?
Sure.
And it seems like there's people sticking their nose up at them and saying, we don't want to have you back.
So
We got somebody to replace you. And if contract employees are a break, what about the people that live in our city? This was one of the big things about we've got to keep our hospital because it provides jobs for our citizens. And they're educated people. These are professionals that live in our city. Now we want to replace them like that? It looks to me like we threw out the trash. We're just going to bring in the new and revitalize this plant.
We can get a number back to you about the FTEs that we have
We've got,
open right now.
I think I gave it to them.
Okay.
We're open. They can apply.
They can apply.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you
As
know
far as the
what all of them have said. You do understand what they've all said.
Tell us.
So, I don't. I'm sorry.
The
I don't.
CFO.
And the CEO, who would then become HR, that they had conflict with.
We're getting into
So they don't want to
personnel
come back
issues that
because
we're
of
not
this?
going to discuss
That
anymore,
one
but
person.
I would encourage
Wait,
you
we're
to
getting-
read
we're
the
getting-
And we can't
documentation.
discuss that, right?
We're getting scattered.
So you only have to do that on your own. In one of your sessions, you have to decide what to do about that.
Vivian, you were trying to say something?
Yeah, I think.
Speak into the microphone, please.
I would love to talk to people, and I would like to know what happened and how they're feeling now, and if you can encourage them maybe to talk to us and get to the bottom of it. I don't know, I would like to know. I can't tell you what went on in the past because I wasn't here.
Of course.
I could tell you what I want for the future, but I encourage people to to contact us. I would love to talk to anybody about it, really.
The hospital has money in the bank, and I know a friend who hasn't quit the hospital. She works part-time up there, and she said before she took off for the winter, she said, now we have to pay for our own, I can't remember what it was, certification or something when the hospital used to pay for it, for full-time, for employees. So they're cutting back on benefits to employees.
I don't think that's necessarily true, Harry.
Well, that one is.
We invest in training for our full-time employees. I'm not sure.
Wait a minute, but I'm talking about specific things like paying for an annual license that they have to have or something annual. I'm not a nurse. All I know is what she's told me, and she's worked up there for a few years, and this is the first time she had to pay for it by herself.
Personnel,
I don't know that I've ever had a facility
look
pay for
into
my
that.
nursing license, but so that was great that this hospital was able to do that for so long, if that's the truth. But we can let you know about what training, annual onboarding, all of that we offer, and
I want to
whether
know
or not
about
we
the people who
reimburse for
who
continuing
really should
ed.
get their jobs back.
Would
That's
you
what I
let
want.
her
I hear you.
finish, please?
I've said it all. We can get you those facts and figures, Harry,
David?
if you want.
Yeah, I've been doing some chicken scratch over here, so please bear with me. But, we keep referring to this pile of paper. And from what I understand, this pile of paper means nothing to the general public because it can't be shared with anyone, correct? It's very unfortunate, but I get it. I know why it cannot be shared. So this stack of paper does not matter to the general public at all, no matter how many times we look at its presence and how thick it is. Although I do want to read it, in the end it doesn't matter because we have to look at moving forward from this stack of paper.
We're trying to,
Hang on just a second. So what I would like to see is that this stack of paper is not going to fix the perception that the public and former employees have of the hospital. Their perception is their reality, plain and simple. You cannot change it. What you can do is start sharing the positives. And that's y'all's job, you guys and the staff. Because if you think the press is going to do it, they're not until you start proving that you can do it consistently. Because what the press has seen consistently so far is things that you cannot do, such as, let's see here, being on Javert 2 times. Let's see. There are a lot of things that the press has picked up on because, you know what, that's their job. That's what feeds people is the discourse, the scandal, or whatever you want to call it. So give our reporters in town something positive to work for.
That's a
I
great
love what
idea.
the two of you on the end have been saying. You move forward. You do good things. You share them on your social media platforms. You share them with your staff. Share staff moments with the public. And until you start doing that, it's just going to be the same thing over and over with the press, and you're going to die in the papers.
That's a great,
It's
it's a great idea.
unfortunate. And one of the things that I heard someone say, I can't remember, was that you can visit any staff member right now and they have good things to say. Well, those people that are on staff right now are contract employees. You have leverage over their head. You can agree if they say something bad, I'm not going to renew your contract.
10 of
So-
our employees are contract, not all of them.
I'm sorry?
10 of our employees are contract,
Okay,
not all
I'm
of
just
them.
using an example of what people say to me, at least. I don't know what they say to everybody else.
Well, regarding the press and what's given to the press, at our last workshop that was over on Norris Street, Lana brought some wonderful statistics,
Actually, that was-
3 or 4 pages of
public meeting.
statistics, and that was given to Ms. Gillette to print in the Independent if she chose to. So, perhaps if she can hear this recording or see the recording, could go back to that packet of paper, because she asked Lana if she could have a copy, and I believe Lana gave her one. So yeah, if the Independent And if the Echo wanted to print those stats, it's a remarkable turnaround on life-saving measures, and the amount of time spent in different categories can show. It's just black and white. So I hope that the Echo and the Independent both would print a copy of those. So thanks for bringing that up. That's a valid point.
We
I just
also
want to make sure that you guys see the negative things that the press has been responsible for reporting. We've got things like a commissioner who had an office in the hospital. Why was that ever a thing? Illegal conversations happening, violating for it. Let me finish.
No, if you could just repeat what you said. Why was what happened?
Commissioner having an office in the hospital, access to cameras, access to personal patient information. That's the story we have. Okay.
That was
I think that's
That was Barbara Dix who resigned from the commission. But it doesn't matter. She's gone. It's in the past. We've got terminated contracts, unhappy employees, trauma divert twice for weeks. And you're going to have to start building up that positive press. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. Trust me.
We're aware of it and appreciate it. Appreciate you bringing it up and underscoring it. We've tried to do that. Our Facebook page, we try to do positives. When we do, we've gotten a couple of snarky responses with them, so we have eliminated any visible responses on that. But we will. That's also what we're looking forward to, having a marketing person in, and also starting to build our outpatient services, and the open house with the, at the hospital is going to be a key thing.
Okay. And my very final comment, I'm sorry, guys, Rachel's like, I want to talk. The common denominator that I see in this whole debacle of our hospital is the current administration. Okay? Personally, I do not see us growing and moving forward with that same administration. I really don't. The two individuals that secretly record conversations, where's an eyeglass case? I've seen videos from this, so don't tell me it doesn't exist.
Yeah, please share that.
Okay.
That would be something to be shared, please.
What I'm saying
And
is
not
that
just spoken
those
into
are
a
the common
microphone.
denominators. And if we bring in a new CEO and the interim has to stop down, and then, is it Lana? And Lana is director of nursing. I don't want these new people to be pulled into all that drama. So we've got to get rid of the drama. Otherwise, it's not going to work. We're going to be in the same position in one more year.
It really concerns me for an accusation like that, that one of our staff has recorded meetings, and that you're privy to these meetings and you've seen it. That is something that I hope in the future, that if something of that magnitude comes to you as a council person, that you would please bring it to the chair so that we can address, the commission itself can address it right then and there. Because right now, David, it feels to me like it's not hearsay, but I've got to see something like that, because if I can't see something like that almost in real time, I can't do anything about it.
Understood. But today is not the first day those pair of glasses have been brought up.
Okay.
Numerous employees have brought them up.
Then please bring these recordings to us so that we can act on it. I can't act on anything that I can't see, feel, and touch.
Okay, but the only person that can bring you those recordings is the person that's violating a staff member's right to privacy.
You just said that you've seen or heard those recordings.
Yes. I haven't seen the video that was recorded from the glasses. I see the... Continue.
And anyone who's recorded on those glasses, there's a big red light that's on.
Not always.
Well,
I mean, I've seen these glasses. I've worked with
Again.
them. Anyway, it doesn't even matter. I'm just saying that
there's more to the
perception is...
story.
Watch out, David.
So-
You're going to be called a liar.
So here's the thing. He's just trying to point out to you that it validates some of the things happening. It's just not hearsay, because now he was able to see evidence, and the person probably doesn't want to come forward because of retaliation. They're probably scared.
And it's not just one person, guys.
Okay.
not just one. Rochelle.
So I'm the person that created a bunch of work for you guys by asking for that stack of documents. And I want you to know that it wasn't lost. I spent the last 2 days reading every bit of that, okay? So I really came to this point wanting to get a better understanding of the challenges that are being faced by the hospital and you guys, the commission. And that helped a lot. I have a much better understanding, I think, of what's happening. So I just wanted you to know that straight up, that I asked for it and I read every bit of it. And I appreciate the effort that went into pulling all of that information. So thank you very much for that. I actually wanted to get some clarification, if I could, on a few things. Is that okay? So I'm kind of looking at this. I came into this way into this whole issue. In fact, this issue almost kept me from even putting my name forward for city council because it just seems like such a big thing, right? So I'm trying to kind of come into this with a systematic look. And note, I have no personal real connection to this other than I have had many constituents come to me very upset on various different levels, which I can share with you in a little bit. But I really wanted to start by getting some clarification. So on one of the points, as far as turnover, we've kind of talked a little bit around that, but if you guys could look at the sheet that was given to me, I just wanted to clarify, there are 39 employees in the hospital, is that correct? 29 regular salaried and 10 contract? Am I reading that right?
I believe so.
Okay.
I will get it out, make sure.
And then as far as the turnover, so you've got it kind of broken out by year, but then it breaks at November, and I'm assuming that's because that's when you had the shift in the CEO? Yeah.
We figured that would be helpful to you,
Yeah.
but then that's why we put the annual.
Yeah, for
below.
sure, as a comparison. So, so my question, just so that I'm understanding this chart, it looks like, let's just take 2023, a total of 49 people left. Either 5 were terminated, 1 abandoned their job, 4 moved, 2 retired, and 37 people fall under the other category. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I kind of understand the chart now. So that means that since the CEO change, we've had 24, if you add those up, it would be 24 total transitions or turnovers since November?
Are you looking at the very last on the chart, 23 total?
Yeah.
Yeah, 23 total, 1 terminated, 1 job abandonment, 1 move, 1 retired, and 20 other, which are usually taking another job or health reasons, personal reasons.
So it's 24 people that have transitioned. 1 of those 24 people were terminated? Just 1?
Yeah.
Where are you getting the 24?
Well, it's incorrect in the thing, but if you add them up, it's actually 24.
Oh, okay. Then
Yeah. It's just off by 1. But
okay, it's 23 total.
yeah.
I know that. Maybe a typo on the other, but 1 was terminated, yes.
It shows 1 terminated, 1 job abandoned, 1 moved, 1 retired, and 20 other people did transition for some reason. So that's 24 transitions since November. Does that seem like a lot? Do you have insight into, I guess what I'm getting at is, well, 1, I'm a little bit confused about the 1 terminated because I feel like we've read in the paper about more than just 1 person terminated. So I'm curious about that. But even just taking that for granted and looking at 20 people leaving for some other reason, that is a huge turnover, right? That is substantially above what the national average would suggest, right? Do we have any insight into why that's happening?
There were 3 people terminated since November 11th. It was a CEO, CNO, and facilities manager.
Okay.
2 of those terminated. In the line above that were the 2 previous ones. The facilities was in the one from 11/4 to 3/27. Is the turnover high? Yes. It is high. But again, consider what we were going through and the people that were leaving and at their choice.
Do you have any insight into why?
Disapproval with shift. I mean, depending on where are you talking about strictly between 11/4 and March of this year?
That's a good place to start, because I'm thinking about, national averages account for a lot of things, like changes in jobs, just general turnover in hospital work, because it's very difficult, which I understand. There's kind of a high turnover rate anyway, because
Retirement.
it's very serious, right? So national averages kind of capture all of those factors. When you look at our average, it's so far above the national average, you have to think there's something else going on. And I think that's what my colleagues are getting at, is that this administration has had some issues, and we're curious, just to be completely frank with you, is the administration the reason behind this huge turnover? Because if so, this trajectory will continue. And as you said, when you don't have staff, you have to bring in contract staff. And the contract staff, you could say it's a wash. I don't know. The financials look to me like it's way more expensive. Then we're sort of perpetuating a financial problem, right? Do you see how I'm just thinking systematically. I'm trying to find a narrative here to make it make sense. But I was curious if you had any other ideas for why the turnover would be so high.
The stats that were given to you on the sheet are specific hospital turnover rates too on a national average. 30% of all new hires left within a year. That is very common in the healthcare industry. And in 5 years, over 100% of a hospital staff will turn over. So and there are stats on there on how often they turn over by particular specialty. It is high. We anticipated some of this being high because of the turmoil that we were going through and the dissatisfaction of the job. We do not anticipate it to continue. That's why we're working hard to stabilize it. The contract versus employee doesn't really cause us that much financial pain because of the cost of not having benefits paid in there, not paying overtime. You've got a sheet in your book about that with those stats. So our goal is to hire more employees. Our goal is to also reduce the turnover. We need to continue to stabilize that and do that. But we think we are, and we're tracking these numbers on a quarterly basis. We'll be more than happy to share them with you. And we hope within the next quarter, you will see a steady. But the hospitals had turnover a lot.
So I'm with you. I would have expected, looking at this chart, to see kind of a culmination of turnover with the CEO shift. My real concern is the continual turnover that's still happening. So do I understand you in saying you feel like you've stabilized that, and if we were to meet a month from now, the turnover is going to have decreased dramatically because you feel that you have...
Yeah, this is, 5 months? November, December, January, February. This is 5 months worth of data. So when you look at that, the 23 compared to the 40 and the 49, it isn't that far off. But moving forward, like right now, I don't recall any turnover super recently. But we will continue to track that, Rochelle, absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking 39 employees total And since November, we've transitioned 23. That's a lot of people.
Well, we're
That's
not
a lot
in
of people.
stable position. We have established some degree of stability and anticipate continuing in a more or less stable position, acquiring a full-time CEO, and not do punitive firing. Don't rock the boat again. It's having a hard time. We're not losing water. We're not gaining water. And that's the plan. We can't tell you why that happened. There's not enough data in 5 months to figure out what happened. I guess we'd call all those people up and see what the reasons were.
I would.
And get a complete, detailed explanation. That might help us to
So you
know.
don't feel as though it's tied to the current administration at all?
Repeat, I'm sorry.
You don't feel that the extremely high turnover is tied to the current administration at all?
Only if you're reading the paper daily, when stories from 3 years ago are being printed again today, when the same stories are being printed over and over again, and only one side is being presented. If anything happens at the hospital, say, "Oh my God, it's true. They hate me." There's a whole lot of this stuff that, as you say, it's in the paper. You bought it. Yeah, we've got it. The only thing we can do a big deal. We can sell the hospital or bring in somebody with fanfare, and that'll change perceptions.
Yesterday, under the previous management, excuse me, David.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Under the previous management, 89 people turned over. 9 were terminated, 5 had job abandonment. So again, you've got to look at it.
I know it's terrible. It was worse.
It was
But
worse.
it's still pretty bad, right?
It's
it's still pretty bad.
But it's not as bad as in previous years.
Yeah.
And
Yesterday,
our goal, again, we can't go backwards, Rochelle. We've got to move forward.
Completely agree with you. And I am that is actually what I'm thinking about, is how do we move forward? And the reason that I just wanted some clarification on this is because it's still too high.
We agree with you.
The turnover is still unsustainable financially.
We violently agree.
Yeah.
Violently agree.
yesterday afternoon, after one of the CEO interviews, I'm walking from upstairs toward the emergency room, and a male in scrubs came out, and we introduced ourselves to one another, and he had absolutely nothing to gain by telling me how impressed he is with our ER staff and with our nursing staff and with our clinical direction, and that he just named off several things that he's really happy about, and the organization that's coming to the facility, and he was just very, very happy. And yes, he is a contract person, but it's people like that, and like the ER nurse who continues to renew his contract. If it was a horrible place currently, then these folks would not repeatedly renew their contracts. Now, is our goal to be able to have 100% local or people who drive in and they're not contract? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But I think I just was very heartwarmed yesterday by that impromptu report that I got from this individual.
I love to hear that, and I'm happy to hear that, because there is definitely a disconnect here in employees that have been contracted that don't like what's happening there, right? So you have to appreciate from our side, we hear that, and then we can hear that. And ultimately, what I'm trying to do is just try to get a systematic understanding of what's happening. And we need an explanation for why our turnover is so high. And to me, it seems as though it might be tied to the current administration, but what I hear you guys saying is it's maybe primarily tied to news coverage or something else. Can you see why I'm asking this question? I'm not placing blame on anyone. I just want to understand what is happening.
Understand, and it would be, the question was asked earlier, if you were on that side of the table, what would you do? when you hear these things, have them contact one of the commissioners and have them let us know so that we're aware of some of these things. But yes, I think your take is correct. We do not feel that it is higher or due to this particular administration. We do acknowledge that it is due to a lot of changes and disruption at the hospital itself. But to tag it onto this administration, I don't think that's accurate.
Vivian, you want to add?
Yeah, so maybe going forward, we might track this monthly and have exit interviews, maybe start to do some actual substantial work on this. And so we could track it monthly and it won't accumulate like
Get a little
this.
closer.
And we could get right to the bottom of it.
I think it's important to understand why.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. And
We would too.
Susan?
So I agree that the turnover number was higher in the previous administration, but there was also a reduction in workforce. So when you look at the numbers today in the current administration, while the turnover looks lower, you had less total employees as well. And that was my other suggestion too, was if you had exit interviews and asked somebody why they were leaving, you would know what this 20 is, because some may leave because they don't want the drama, they just don't, they're not comfortable where they're working anymore. Because you've tracked, moved and retired, but you don't know about other, and there's a lot of people in other.
We do that, we track that. The question was specifically those categories. That's why other is out there, but we know if they were, personal or accepted another job or whatever. I mean, we do track that.
That would be important because those are high numbers.
Right, and remember that 1/1 of '24, that time period is when REH started with us.
23.
Or 23, excuse me. And so a lot of these numbers of staffing even changed because of the reduction of staffing back then.
So it would have been.
Be back farther.
It could be helpful to know 40 out of how many employees?
Yeah, some of that, yeah. So it
23
didn't
out
all
of
just-
how
right.
many?
The reduction didn't just happen this year. You know what I mean, based on the REH? You're right.
It happened during 24, yeah. No, you were right, 24, not 23. My bad.
I just want to make sure that you guys understand what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Or
that's a
they-
good
okay.
point. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you did report in the last 5 years, the hospital's turned over 106% of its workforce.
Yeah.
Well, and these are national averages of all of them. I could not find any averages for rural hospitals, but everybody told me it's higher, because of location, remote, different opportunities. But the healthcare industry is not easy right now.
Yeah, no, I completely understand that. I wondered if you would take a look at the financial statements that you provided and kind of talk us through that, specifically in January 25 and the February 25 income statements.
January 25, I didn't bring that, I brought,
There's a budget.
January 25 specifically, does the question relate at all? I brought the December 24 in, but what's your question specifically, Rochelle?
Looking at patient revenue, in January, this is income statement for 1/31/2025. Under patient revenue, compared to the previous year, there's a substantial reduction in patient revenue compared to like a $445,000 reduction in patient revenue.
I'm not looking at the same thing you're looking at, I'm sorry. I've got February 28, are you on?
February, we can look at February 28 if you want. February 28, 2025 income statement.
The income statement, February 25? Mm-hmm. Okay, I got that.
All right, yeah, I'm looking at it.
All right, so actual year-to-date patient revenue $825,000. Is that correct?
Patient revenue.
Right, you're looking at the prior year?
The actual year-to-date shows $825,000 in patient revenue, is that correct?
That's, yes, outpatient revenue, yes.
Yeah. Outpatient revenue, okay.
Right.
So the only thing reported is $825,000 for patient revenue? That's all outpatient revenue? Is that-
That's all, I'm sorry, I think it's operating revenue. Excuse me. That's all revenue.
It's operating.
Okay.
Prior year was
It's
one-
income.
And you're talking about the prior year being the
So when you look here,
1,672
And
and a half. So
Yes, patient revenue, that's operating revenue. It's the same thing, patient revenue. This is,
well, this is,
Bruce, that's,
this is 25. This
it's
is,
substantially lower than the previous year?
I'm sorry.
So it's substantially lower than the previous year? Yeah?
half, yeah.
Do we know why?
Not totally on the gross amount, but of course we had to eliminate inpatient and swing bed revenue. So a good portion of that is that.
There's a paradigm shift there from a full-blown hospital to an REH hospital, and it's a different animal.
Didn't that take place between 23 and 24, is that correct? Was all of 24?
Yeah. when James
All
wanted to-
all of 24, that's why I kind of focused on the December 24, because that kind of tells a little
Yeah,
bit
Terry,
different
all
story.
of 24 was REH.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
It rolls
January, February was,
Yeah, rollover took, yeah,
yeah.
good point.
Our designation was effective on the 23rd, but they were still going through changes, policies, procedures, and all that stuff in it. So
Yeah. As far
we
as-
kind of looked at April as our baseline to look at the REH model to compare on an annual basis.
And one thing that makes it difficult, it's that transition that's occurring right then, so it's real hard to parse it out for that particular time.
Sure, I understand. When you look at the 2025 budget, the projected total patient revenue, would you make adjustments to that then, just based on what we have year-to-date so far?
No, I think our budget, our 2025 budget calls for 14 million in revenue, netted down to 7.3, and it's a zero-based budget. We base that on April moving forward, April of '23, moving forward with an REH model, so eliminating swing bed inpatient, eliminating some expenses that came with that, and some of our obligations that will be paid off by the 4th. So, no, I think we're still pretty comfortable with our budget for 2025. We do, we'll probably do it quarterly, but we do a review of it on every 6 months. So definitely take a hard look at that. I might tell you this is the first budget the hospital has had. We have struggled with that as a commission before to get a budget in place, and it was never done. So this is the first budget working forward. But if you look at the revenue and the trends, net revenue is $1,158,000 at the end of February. That's pretty close to the 14 million we're looking at gross. The expense item, I'm surprised you didn't bring that up with the 364,000.
That's coming.
I figured.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured. That, we've had a lot of data breach issues and a lot of concerns in that. And with an REH model, we had to upgrade technology. We had to implement cybersecurity protocols as well. So a chunk of that, almost, I think it was 280,000 or something like that, was new equipment. I mean, we're completely setting up a whole new network and secure network and system in the hospital.
What's the line for that? What's the line for that expense?
You've got it in purchase services.
Okay.
Terry had a question.
So I was actually going to talk to you guys about the salaries, wages, and contract labor. Looking at the contract labor year-to-date, $606,000. Do you feel that you're on track with your budget there?
Well, we're a little higher than we had anticipated on that.
You're a lot higher.
But, yeah, if you look at also the medical specific fees, those are, were last year were were comparable to that contract labor, but that includes our emergency room docs. Contract labor is also Pinnacle. Pathology. What else? So yeah, it's high, and but again, we anticipated it because of the situation we were in with contract labor. You pay more.
Sure. And based on your budget, it looked like you would expect about $350,000 in expense for contract labor, but you're at $606,000. So that's a really big difference. And my reason for asking these things is because I'm anticipating that at the end of the year, if you're we're running through our reserves very quickly with these kinds of numbers, right? So will City Council, should we be thinking that we need to reallocate money possibly at some point? Or where do we run out of money when we're spending like this? Because it's the zero-based budget, that's not working with this, right? Other operating expenses, this is a small one, but other operating expenses, you budgeted $18,000, we're already at $11,000.
I'm sorry, 18, I'm having trouble.
Sorry. Other operating expenses, year-to-date,
Okay.
we're already $11,147, and that line is budgeted $18,000 for the year, and we're in February, right? So I'm concerned about. I also read that there was no operating budget after 2020, which is incredible to me. So I appreciate that we're working on a budget now.
We do
and so
too.
I want this to be accurate so we know exactly where we are financially, where we're going, and what's going to be expected in the next few months.
We are accurate with the financial statements with it. We have some oddities. We know it. We're tracking it. Some of these were unexpected expenses. The technology, that was steep. We also, another thing I thought of that we brought in was Pyxis, our new automated med station, which was very necessary because we had some drug theft prior, and that's mitigated that a little bit. But yeah, we're going to be watching the budget very carefully and the expenses. And a lot of this is front-loaded that will be, not as glaring next month or next quarter, hopefully.
Well, so probably Terry is ready to weigh in here. I just kind of want to conclude my thoughts on this so far, right? And I think having these conversations are really important. I think working together to find solutions is super important. And I think that you guys have a difficult job. I think we have a difficult job. And I just think everybody's heart is in the right place. So I appreciate all the time and effort that you guys put into it. Difficult situation. I'm left with three kind of primary concerns or conclusions. The confidence of the commission in the current hospital administration has resulted in, I see this as contributing to staff turnover. Unless there's a better explanation, which I haven't heard yet or read in there, it seems to me that it's tied to administrative issues. Not because I made that up, but because that's what's being told to me by folks who worked in the hospital and who have connections to the hospital through contract labor. That's why I've come to that conclusion. I didn't see anything presented that substantially changes that trajectory, so that's concerning to me. The community's trust in the commission and the administration, this is the second thing, has almost completely deteriorated for whatever the reasons are. Not placing blame on anyone, but that's where we are right now, and I think that's what my colleagues have been trying to point out. There is no trust. I've spent the last week systematically talking to not just people who contact me. I reached out and talked to people who chose to not get treatment here because of the lack of trust, people who have worked there previously, people who currently work in the hospital, medical professionals in the community that refer people to the hospital, and everyone agrees that the administration is an issue in the trust factor. Whether there's an actual basis for it or not, that is the perception, and I think that's what my colleagues are trying to explain. What do you do about the perception? You have to do something. You have to do something. They're not going to read all of this. It's not going to change their mind. They're going to read the paper. They're going to read the paper. So that's just that's number two concern. There's no trust. And there's nothing that's been presented here that would convince me that that's going to change. I think we're down the same road still with that. Both of these concerns seem to have a huge financial impact on what's reflected in these income statements. Patient revenue's down, half of what's budgeted. Staff expenses are up, double what's budgeted. The commission and the current administration, in my opinion, are completely dangerously off track with the operating budget for 2025. By my calculations, several $million. So that goes through $6 million in reserves really quickly. Again, I'm concerned that the council is going to be expected to reallocate money to help make up the difference.
No.
If so, at what point does that happen? The $6 million isn't going to last forever. In my mind, that money could possibly be used to make improvements needed to the hospital and get a management company in to take it from administration to outpatient services, managing the whole thing by professionals, if that's possible. Do I have one in my pocket? No. But I think strongly that that's the direction that we should be going. Finding a professional management company to manage this, take this out of your hands so you don't have to be dealing with it. You guys are volunteers, and make it more financially feasible for the future. I would urge the commission to revisit the budget immediately and report back so that we can have a better idea of where we're actually standing financially. And in conclusion, I'm firmly in favor of securing a full service management contract for the hospital operation. And I urge the commission to expedite that process and find a viable candidate as soon as possible. And I'm not in support of commissioners who refuse to look at that option. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. Please come to the next commission meeting when our CFO is here, so that hopefully some of your more specific questions can be answered in real time about how we're tracking. So she's definitely has the numbers. She can nail those numbers down for you really easily. So please come and ask questions. Great.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
I appreciate transparency and openness to work together. I think that's the only way that we're going to be successful in keeping the hospital open. And I think everybody feels the same way. But I stand by my statement.
On the financials, I'd like to point out that the year ended 2024, we were in considerably better shape than the prior year. We had net operating revenue of 1,572, and our revenue was about, our operating revenue, net revenue was about equal to the year prior. So we have stopped the bleeding. In 23, 22, I think it was $250,000 a month being lost, and we've stopped the bleeding with that. And again, it's important to get on apples to apples to be able to compare it with the REH model. But I think we're doing a little bit better, as this graph was trying to demonstrate to you, as an REH than we would have had we continued with the CAH, without a doubt.
I think
Sustainable at all.
personally, we could have an entire workshop on the financials.
Be great.
Fine.
Let's do.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the last time, and I hear what the council's saying, and I tend to agree, but in trying to get some sort of management into this, and I thought we had talked, Sandy, you and I, and had discussed, and whether it was it an interim management? Is that what you were looking at?
The staff has had conversation with North Ark Medical Center for interim, not management, but administrative services to help us first specifically with the lab and maybe in other departments in the administrative, but not as a total management.
Administration, what'd you say?
Administrative services.
Okay.
And interim, you're right, just not a long-term contract. Just
Yeah, but no conversation has been for them to, like, take over the hospital. We haven't had any of those conversations.
How would that work?
How would that work? We would enter a short-term contract with them on specified administrative services that they think they could help us with. Lab was one of them. Not sure exactly what the others were. Staff had this conversation with them, but that was like priority to make sure that that's staffed and that we quickly get out of contracts into more employee situation. So it would be a short-term contract that we mutually agree what those services could be that they could help the hospital with.
I know we had talked about having that capability of somebody coming in and analyzing the hospital and how it's operating with the staff and the procedures and everything. Being able to do that on an outside basis.
And North Ark could do that. They're not an REH hospital, but they could do that. Our REH consultant, actually, that is what they did. They came in and they helped us get through all of the application, the policies that they're still writing for them. So it's best if it's someone who has REH experience. And of course, the state has put us through everything. So we know now with the clearances on both of those surveys that we're operating in compliance, in full compliance with the state REH rules.
Susan?
So I think those are valid ideas to come in and see where there could be some deficiencies, which will cost money to do that. We are looking at hiring a new CEO, but why not bring in a managed company where you won't have to do that, who would bring in a qualified CEO from a hospital that's already up and running and proven, instead of crawling, trying to get where we need to be.
I think, as we said earlier, we agreed that we would, I'll call Mercy and I'll call Wash Ridge. Doubt if there's going to be interest, but we'll make that call and we'll evaluate it. it's worth looking into. But you're suggesting a hospital takeover, not a management agreement
sorry?
like Dr. House proposed. You just mentioned a hospital that would come in and,
A managed, like a Mercy or something, not a takeover, but somebody coming in to manage the hospital.
I feel like all options should be considered. You know, even something like a proposal, if Dr. Howes or someone else has an idea for, you know, if it's a viable option, I think it should be considered.
I think Sandy made
we
a good-
said we would.
Yeah, Sandy made a good point earlier. Dr. House's deal is put it on the table. There was a lot of story there, but there was no substance to when he presented to us about, you know, coming in on board. So, you know, we're open to having him pursue, but we need the nuts and bolts of what he wants to do.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Can you set up a meeting with him?
I'm sorry?
Could you set up a meeting with him to discuss this?
We said we would,
Yeah,
3 times.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, I'm really concerned about, you got a lawyer involved in the lab worker? Oh, sorry, Terry. It's just that I see this spaghetti, these photos in the lab, where it needs to be tidied up because it's a lab. There's extension cords and cables all over the place, and I think this technician was the one that wanted to get it fixed. And I don't know why there's a lawyer involved in that, but obviously this in the lab needs to be repaired.
When was that
What's the
taken,
date?
Harry?
What's the date on that picture?
Well, I don't have a date. I don't have a date. But they were taken by Miss German before she left. It wasn't long ago that she was up there, so, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, no, I don't know the date.
I'm not sure.
So, that's all I gotta say
So
about
can
that.
we
Go look at
plan-
the lab. Go look at the lab now.
All right, what's?
I think Terry wanted to
We want to
say.
have another,
Well, I just would like to speak a little
Terry
bit.
had spoken.
Not that,
been very
you know, I feel like I've been left out over here in my corner. But,
Well, you're a stepchild.
yeah, well, I am that, all right.
that's what I was
I
saying,
am
you
a
know, what's
stepchild.
next, Terry?
Well, I just want to say that, you know, I've talked to a lot of people. There's no one that wants to close the hospital. No one. You know, it's an important part of the community, and so we want to keep it, and it has to be where, again, like has been already said, that the confidence on the local level has to be reinvigorated, because it's not there really right at the moment. And you blame it on whatever you want to, but I know that perception is not good. So that's got to be changed. And you're right, the press needs to get involved, but that information, as has already been said, that you have tried to present that to them and they haven't put it out there yet, but I think a persistence in that line needs to be followed and encourage them to do that. As, you know, if I have the opportunity, I certainly will encourage them to do that, that they, you know, excuse me, that people need to hear from both sides, and I think that's critical. You know, 3 of the people on the hospital commission I know that have extensive medical backgrounds, and I respect that very much. And you know, all of your efforts and volunteerism is truly appreciated. We know how that is, and our community depends upon that, and that people that are qualified step into these roles and do that, as you all have, and that's great. I think it's important for us. I've looked at the budget numbers too, and it's hard for me to understand the hospital budget because maybe they're a little different than what I'm used to, but because of the like on the budget for this next year or the current year, the 25, is that, you know, the patient revenue at 14,280, and then the operations contractual, you know, I don't know what that is. the other contractual, but then you get down there, you get deductions from revenue, that's 5464, and so I assume that's like insurance, you know, or what they bill for, but they don't get to get paid for because the insurance dictate a lot of that. So I assume that that's what that is. And then the bad debt expense, $1.5 million, is that really a legitimate number, I assume? I don't know. But then it goes on down, and of course, and maybe you have to, as a nonprofit, have to zero out on your budget? Is that? No.
We don't have to.
Well, I think, and I'm kind of like Rochelle in that, you know, the way it looks like, you know, the way your projections are here, you're going to come up way up short anyway, unless things happen. And the contractual labor, I see, is a big part of that. And of course, generating more revenue and getting back up to the levels you were. But that's, you know, 14 million is pretty aggressive, but, you know, it really just comes down to 7 million, and that's not so impressive.
I can tell you one thing, Terry, hopefully it will make you feel better about, and you as well, with monetarily going forward. One thing that is vitally important for us to submit billing to Medicaid, Medicare for reimbursement is that all of our physicians are filling out their discharge paperwork and dictating their discharge diagnoses and dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And I can promise you that that is happening now. And since that is happening now, that part of our revenue will...
You think that will increase?
Yes. Yes, you'll see a marked difference.
Okay.
We have not had a chance to go out and develop new services, marketing services.
Well, you know, everything that's happened in the past is truly unfortunate and saddens me greatly. But we do have to move forward, and so we deal with that as well. And you know, maybe some of those people can get back on the payroll. I don't know. I hope so. It's important for this community because of the employees. Even with the turnover there is, you know, most of them are local. You know, and maybe not just Eureka Springs, but Berryville and the surrounding area. And so, you know, it's critical to keep those employees local if we can. And the contract labor is something that I'm not real fond of. And I'm sure you're not either because it is more expensive. So, you know, and part of getting the labor force back on payroll is, you know, getting that image back up. And so, you know, I don't know how to go about that. But this is a good start. It really is. I think this gives all of us some insight of what's going on. Your job's not easy. We get that. You know, we sit here and we're making critical decisions on city infrastructure right now that, you know, maybe none of us will get elected next time because of the decisions we got to make. But that's just the deal. That's the way it works.
Nobody wants our job.
Huh?
Nobody wants your job.
Well, but maybe I don't want them to have it. Maybe I want to keep it. Regardless of that, I would like to have somebody, you know, to give me a better explanation of this. And so, you know, the idea of a workshop on how the money works at the hospital, I think is a great idea. And it gives us more background so we understand. Right. We don't want to get in your face. We don't want to. Hell, I want to be watching Razorbacks play baseball right now.
I hear you.
You know, so.
We had.
But we're here.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you for your comments. And we had that if you're interested, and I'll get you the exact date, but I think it was in August, we had our workshop on the budget. And the CFO developed a book, and we went through line item by line item by line item on every single thing to see what would be different, what we could cut, where we needed to look at different areas. That's recorded. And it might really be a good thing for you to listen to if you're interested in the budget specifically. We'll do a workshop, and we'll go through it. But if you want a little background and the thinking behind this budget and where things stand, we dug into every contract, everything we could think of to ask questions on.
And where is that?
It's an audio recording from our workshop, and it's August, and I'll get you the date.
Yeah.
But that might give you a good background.
Sure.
And that's how, of course, we came up with the new 2025, that, from that workshop is where we arrived at that, or got those thoughts.
Or the link would be wonderful.
That'd be good background before we had a budget workshop, absolutely.
Okay, I'll get the date and have Kim or Christina send you the link,
Awesome, thank you.
because it should be up on your channel.
Make sure a reminder that we.
And in that workshop, and if anybody wants to see it, I've got the book, but the CFO put together, it's about that tall, a book of all the documents for a year so that we could look at it by department, by month, and see where we're going with it, because they had never gone through that exercise before. So be glad to share any of that with you.
Sandy, with your workshops and your meetings, I understand that workshops are held in a different location than this normally, and that it's too tight for people to actually come in and see. Where are the workshops held? I don't know.
25 Norris, across the street from the hospital. The reason we do that is, depending on what we're workshopping, the close access to the hospital for like staff to come over and report things, or for us to go over and look at things, is more important than coming here, quite frankly.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is, past 2 years with a commission that I sit on, we had to bite the bullet, and I'm talking complete and utter transparency, whether you like it or not. And that's what it is, and that's the way it should be. And I hear a lot of things about people who want to attend these workshops, but they can't because there's no place to sit. It's only an audio recording. I think that all of your meetings, whether they're your regular meetings or your workshops, should be recorded visually and auditory, because I won't sit around and just listen to a tape of y'all talking. I want to see the interactions that are going on. And with that being said, that transparency needs to come down from all of you to the administration of the hospital. Because, I just got a phone call today that an employee asked for a copy of their performance review, and they were denied that copy. They can't have copies of their performance reviews. They can't review their personnel file. This is what I've heard. It's not just from one person. And if we're going to talk about healing and moving forward, they have a right to see that stuff. It's about them.
If you could give Sandy the name after of the person.
I'm not going to give any names of people that come to me with stuff that's going on. And normally if I hear it once, I'll keep it in the back of my head, but when I hear it 2 or 3 times, I know that something's happening.
Well, I don't know how to follow up with HR if
It would probably be the person that called today asking.
if the person, you said it happened today,
It's Jody that told them no.
and so but the request was made today, and they wanted a copy
Not
of.
today.
Okay, when was the request made?
I'm sorry.
When was the request made, so I can follow up?
I'll have to go back to my notes.
Okay, please.
Because I've had, I want to say 3 people that say that they do not have access to their performance reviews.
Or
I
validate.
know when I get
Jody.
one, I like to keep it so that if I'm looking for another job, I can say, this is what they said.
Everyone should have a copy of their performance, their annual
Exactly.
performance review, because you
have to sign it.
Your supervisor signs it, and you sign it, and a copy goes into your personnel file, and you get a copy to take home with you. So that's just standard operating procedure. So,
Well, the policy of not letting them have a later on copy, my God, where in the world to make a copy? That probably needs to be looked at some level. Sounds
anyway,
like to me.
everyone should have a copy of their annual review.
And beyond that, I wanted to say thanks to each and every one of you for agreeing to the meeting. It is really important. I think it's a good first step. Like everybody here has said, we just hear one side of the story. And it's unfortunate that that's the story that we hear when you guys know the whole story. And you
Yeah.
can't talk about it. That's what makes it even more frustrating.
Tell us, yeah.
And I do want to correct what Dr. said, David. These are public records, so public can access these.
Okay.
When
Yep.
Michelle asked for this, I sent it to all the council members.
Yep.
So it's available to people.
Right.
Good.
If somebody wants them, you can send it on to them.
Okay.
I suggest you make them
that's-
available to the press.
Beg your pardon?
Let the press go through them.
But that's only
Give 'em a
one
copy.
portion of what. we're
Most of
dealing
that
with
stuff has
tonight.
already been FOIA'd, guys. Now,
We've
know,
been FOIA'd so many times in the hospital.
Yeah.
that if they haven't got it, they'll ask.
there are things in there that tell a different side of the story as far as some of the employee issues go. That is true.
Susan?
So moving forward, I don't know how much time the commissioners need to put all these things together that we asked about, as far as, CEO versus having a managed company come in. But we do want feedback on that, of course, and then the finance workshop is kind of another, I think, separate meeting. When would you recommend that we meet again?
Let us check all of our schedules, because I don't know. I think with the management, the CEO type thing, we've sort of answered your question on that. And I will make some calls to Mercy and Wash Ridge this week and see if there's a level of interest there. I'll reach out to Dr. Haas if he wants to give us a detailed proposal. We've got a workshop coming up next Monday. We can change what we were going to talk about on that one, and we can change that to talk to Dr. House. That's easy. And then moving forward, and specifically, I know I wrote two things down as far as the budget workshop and then the link to the budget thing as well. Were there other specific questions?
Besides the.
That's all I heard, that I took
think
notes
those
that
were
you
the
wanted
two
action
main,
items on. Okay, so we can put together to bed the management company, the CEO. Let us get back to you. Preferably it would be after our April 7th.
Yeah, sure.
Workshop, and then we'll kind of see what everybody's
Why
schedule
don't
is.
you get with Christine or Kim, and then we'll coordinate it with the council and set up a workshop.
Okay.
Get through with your workshop. and
Okay, but you'll get the link
Yes.
tomorrow,
So we can have that on the schedules.
Will do. We'll come up with maybe 2 different dates.
All right. All right, anything else? Thank y'all.
Those were the only action items, yeah.
Thank you. We
Thank you.
appreciate this, and we appreciate you, and we hope this is a very positive step forward. And we appreciate your support. That's what we need more than the criticism, to change the perception. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.